The first time I realized my job was stealing from me, I was standing on a wobbling step stool, 8 feet in the air, gripping a banner in sweaty hands, thinking, if I fall and crack my skull open, they'd replace me by next week. I didn't know it yet, but that cheap banner, those missing dollars, and one careless rumor would turn into the most profitable revenge of my life. Before we get into it, if you've ever been underpaid, overworked, or quietly screwed by a company that smiled to your face, you'll want to hear this. Hit like, subscribe, and settle in. This one's personal. I worked at a chain salon in the US. You know the type. Bright lights. Cheap laminate floors. Mirrors that showed you every flaw under unforgiving fluorescent bulbs. A constant hum of hairdryers, pop music playing just a little too loud, and managers who talked about a team culture while paying you the absolute legal minimum. I made minimum wage. Plus tips. But that wasn't the whole story. They had this system they loved to brag about, a sliding scale. The more services you sold, the more your hourly pay went up. Add a deep conditioning treatment? Higher hourly rate. Convince someone to buy a glaze, a trim add-on, a blow-dry upgrade? Boom. More money. On paper, it sounded fair. In reality, it was a maze designed to confuse stylists just enough that we wouldn't notice when numbers stopped adding up. Still, I was good at my job. Really good. I'd been there for years. I knew how to upsell without sounding pushy. I remembered clients' kids' names, their divorces, their job interviews. I could recommend product without making it awkward. Most weeks, I was ranked number 2 in sales, not just in my store, but across the district. So when back-to-school season rolled around, I thought, all right. This is my time. Back to school meant packed chairs. Kids. Teens. Parents in a rush. Haircuts back to back, barely time to pee between clients. It was exhausting, but lucrative. Except corporate had a brilliant idea. We're running a $10 haircut special, management announced during a rushed morning meeting. Someone groaned. Another stylist muttered, that's dumb. And it was dumb. Back to school is when people already need haircuts. You don't discount the one service that's guaranteed to sell. But corporate loved the illusion of generosity. Loved banners. Loved promotions that looked good in emails. And that banner. That damn banner. To advertise the sale, we were required to hang this massive thing off the roof of the building. 10 feet long. 3 feet wide. Heavy vinyl. Our logo splashed across it in fading colors, screaming $10 haircuts to passing cars. The only way to hang it? A rickety plastic step stool. On an uneven sidewalk. Right next to a busy parking lot. No harness. No ladder. No safety protocol. Just vibes. And management insisted we do it twice a day. Once at opening. Once at closing. Just in case someone steals it, our manager said, dead serious. Steals it. Because obviously, someone would risk a trespassing charge to steal a banner advertising cheap haircuts from a chain salon. Every morning, my stomach tightened when it was my turn. The stool wobbled. The sidewalk dipped. My arms strained as I reached overhead, fingers numb from gripping the edge of the roof. I remember thinking, if I slip, this place will act shocked for about 10 minutes. But I kept doing it. Because that paycheck was coming. Or so I thought. When payday hit, I opened my pay stub the way I always did, quick glance, expecting the familiar bump from high service dollars. Instead, my heart sank. It was smaller. Not just a little. Significantly smaller. I checked again. Ran the numbers in my head. Pulled up previous back-to-school paychecks from past years. This was the lowest one I'd ever received. Years of experience. Higher sales. More clients. Less money. I felt heat rise up my neck. My jaw tightened. That kind of anger that doesn't explode right away, it settles. Heavy. Quiet. Dangerous. They'd done it on purpose. That $7 discount per haircut? It was being deducted from our service dollar calculations. So every cheap haircut didn't just pay less, it actively dragged our hourly rate down. We weren't just making less per service. We were being penalized for corporate's promotion. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying the math in my head. Replaying every upsell, every extra service I'd pushed, every smile I'd forced through a 10-hour shift. They knew. They had to know. The next morning, I walked into work already vibrating with anger. And that's when I found myself outside again. Staring up at the roof. Standing next to the salon gossip. Every workplace has one. She was a brown-noser. A rumor courier. The kind of person who smiled wide, nodded a lot, and repeated everything you said with just enough spin to cause damage. Management loved her. Stylists tolerated her. We were assigned to hang the banner together. When it became my turn on the step stool, I climbed up slowly, heart pounding, partly from fear, partly from rage. I'm glad this will be the last time I ever do this, I said casually. She snapped her head toward me. What do you mean? I was about to make a joke. Something dark. Something like, I'm gonna fall and crack my head open. But then, a different idea slid into place. Petty. Sharp. Perfect. I climbed down. Looked around. Lowered my voice. Don't tell anyone, I said. Especially not our boss. Her eyes lit up. Gossip like that is oxygen. I got offered a job at another salon, I continued. Set schedule. Higher commission. $5 more an hour. Her mouth actually fell open. I was gonna put in my 2 weeks, I said, but they need me sooner. So I'm working the weekend, and I'm done. I let the silence stretch. That's gonna leave us seriously understaffed for back to school, she whispered. I nodded. I know. Please don't say anything. She promised. Immediately. I left early that day. And as I drove home, a strange calm settled over me. Because whether she told or not, something had already been set in motion. The rumor didn't take long. It never does. The next time I walked into the salon, the air felt off. Conversation stopped mid-sentence when I passed. Someone avoided eye contact. Someone else smiled too hard, the kind of smile that means they know something. I clocked in, tied my apron, and told myself to stay calm. You didn't do anything wrong, I repeated in my head. You told the truth. Or close enough. I was halfway through my first client when my manager appeared in my mirror. Can I see you in my office? She asked, voice syrupy sweet. My stomach dropped, not from fear, but from anticipation. This was faster than I expected. I followed her past the rows of chairs, past the break room that always smelled like burnt coffee and hairspray, into her tiny office. Beige walls. A cluttered desk. Corporate posters about growth and opportunity curling at the corners. She closed the door. I heard a rumor, she said, folding her hands like this was a friendly chat. That you might be leaving us. There it was. I didn't rush my answer. I leaned back slightly, arms crossed, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make her uncomfortable. I was offered another position, I said carefully. Yes. Her smile tightened. Is that true? It is. She sighed dramatically, as if she were the one being wronged. You know we value you here, she said. You're one of our top performers. I almost laughed. You value me, at minimum wage. I like it here, I replied. But the offer is better. Set schedule. Higher commission. $5 more an hour. I watched her face closely. That number landed. She leaned forward. If we could match it, would you consider staying? There it was. The thing they swore was impossible. I tilted my head. I'd love to. But I need stability. The late nights, early mornings, it's hard to find childcare. I can't keep doing 9 p.m. closes and 9 a.m. opens. She nodded, suddenly understanding. Suddenly sympathetic. I'd have to call the district leader, she said slowly. I can't promise anything. I understand, I said. And I meant it, because for the first time in years, I actually had leverage. She dismissed me, and I walked back to my station with my heart pounding. Not from nerves. From adrenaline. For the rest of the shift, I worked on autopilot. Cut. Smile. Sell. Recommend. Inside my head, one thought kept repeating. If this works, everything changes. The call came the next day. She pulled me aside again, this time visibly tense. I spoke with the district leader, she said. We can approve the raise. $5 more an hour. Just like that. And, she added, we can move you to a set schedule starting next week. I stared at her. After years of being told no. After begging. After explaining childcare issues again and again. All it took was the threat of losing me. I accepted. Outwardly calm. Inwardly shaking. And just like that, the narrative shifted. I wasn't just another stylist anymore. I was an asset. A risk. Someone worth negotiating with. But the relief didn't erase the anger. Because the paycheck problem didn't stop. The next pay period rolled in, and once again, my numbers were off. Small this time. Almost invisible. 19 cents here. 30 cents there. Amounts so tiny they felt insulting to even question. That's how they get away with it. Most people don't fight over cents. They sigh. Shrug. Move on. I didn't. I started paying attention. Every shift, before I clocked in, I printed my service sales slip from the day before. I kept them in a folder. Dated. Organized. Neat. When payroll adjusted the numbers to include coupons and discounts, I compared them line by line. And every time I brought it up, there's nothing we can do, payroll said. That's just how the system works. Funny how the system always worked against us. I raised the issue sporadically, careful not to seem difficult. Just persistent enough to be annoying. Years passed. 5 of them. 5 years of better pay. Set schedule. Consistent childcare. 5 years of quietly collecting proof. I watched coworkers burn out. Quit. Get replaced. I watched new promotions roll out, same tricks, new banners. And every time that damn $10 haircut sale came back, my chest tightened. Because I knew. I knew exactly what it did to our pay. The final time they announced it, something inside me snapped. I finished my shift. Cleaned my station. Clocked out. And I didn't come back. A few months later, an envelope arrived in the mail. A law firm. A class action lawsuit. Another employee. Another state. Same issue. They asked if I wanted to join. I smiled. Because I had been waiting for this moment longer than they could ever imagine. I remember holding the envelope in my hands for a long time before opening it. It was heavier than it should have been. Not because of the paper, but because of what it represented. Validation. For years, I'd been told I was mistaken. Confused. Overreacting. For years, every complaint had been smoothed over with corporate language and polite dismissal. There's nothing we can do. That's just how the system calculates it. It all evens out. Now, suddenly, a law firm was saying, no. You were right. I sat at my kitchen table, the same place I used to spread out pay stubs late at night, trying to make sense of them while everyone else slept. The house was quiet. The clock ticked. My coffee went cold. I opened the envelope. Class action lawsuit. Wage theft. Multiple states. Multiple employees. Same sliding scale scam. They wanted to know if I wanted to be included. I didn't hesitate. I called the number on the letter. The lawyer on the other end sounded tired, the way people do when they've heard the same story over and over, and it keeps getting worse. When I told him I had documentation, his tone changed. What kind of documentation? He asked. 5 years, I said. Printed service slips. Pay stubs. Emails. Corporate memos. Payroll responses. There was a pause. 5 years, he repeated. Yes. Another pause. Longer this time. We're going to like working with you, he said. That was the moment it stopped being about frustration. And started being about control. I scanned everything. Organized it chronologically. Labeled files. Cross-referenced dates. Each document told a story. Not just of lost money, but of intent. Discounts applied retroactively. Free haircut rewards counted as 0 instead of full value. Service dollars quietly shaved down until they changed your entire hourly rate. 19 cents an hour. 30 cents an hour. Numbers small enough to hide. Big enough to steal thousands. As I sent batch after batch of files, the lawyer kept emailing back. This is excellent. This is exactly what we need. This strengthens the case significantly. And with every message, something heavy lifted off my chest. For the first time, I wasn't explaining myself to people who didn't care. I was being listened to. Months passed. I tried not to think about it. Tried not to hope too much. Class actions are slow. Complicated. Easy to water down. Still. I replayed the past in my head. The step stool wobbling beneath my feet. The banner snapping in the wind. The paycheck that made my stomach drop. I thought about that rumor. That careless promise. That one moment of pettiness that changed everything. If I hadn't said anything. If I'd stayed quiet like they expected. I never would have gotten the raise. The schedule. The leverage. And now. They were going to have to look at every single paycheck. The settlement came quietly. No apology. No admission of wrongdoing. Just numbers. They recalculated my pay, properly this time. Every discounted haircut counted at full service value. Every free haircut included. Every fraction of an hour corrected. The final amount? Around half of the total settlement. Plus my share of the class action. Just over $10,000. I stared at the figure on the page, heart pounding. It wasn't just money. It was proof. Proof that they'd taken it. Proof that I'd been right to fight. Proof that patience could be sharper than anger. But the best part? They had to pay it because I kept receipts. The money didn't arrive with fireworks. No dramatic phone call. No apology letter. No executive suddenly realizing the harm they'd done. It came the way corporate justice always does, quietly, carefully, and without emotion. A notice. A breakdown. A deposit. I logged into my bank account one morning, half asleep, coffee in hand, and froze. There it was. 5 figures. I sat down slowly, afraid my legs wouldn't hold me. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. Not smiling. Not crying. Just breathing. Because the real victory wasn't the money. It was knowing that somewhere, in a beige corporate office filled with spreadsheets and compliance meetings, someone had been forced to pull my file. Someone had to open years of payroll records. Someone had to trace the math. Someone had to admit, at least on paper, that the system they defended for so long was broken. And it cost them. Not just me, dozens of employees across multiple states. All because the company thought no one would ever bother to notice pennies. I thought back to my old boss. I imagined her sitting in that same tiny office, phone pressed to her ear, listening as corporate explained the lawsuit. Imagined her nodding, tight-lipped, maybe remembering the day she pulled me aside over a rumor. A rumor that saved her store from losing a top stylist. A rumor that cost the company tens of thousands more in the long run. I wondered if she ever connected the dots. If she remembered me standing on that step stool. If she remembered approving my raise. If she realized how close they'd come to losing everything over greed so small it barely showed up on a paycheck. I never reached out. I didn't need to. Because this kind of revenge doesn't require confrontation. It doesn't need shouting or threats or dramatic exits. It just needs time. And records. And the refusal to let someone tell you that what you're seeing isn't real. I paid off bills. Fixed things I'd been putting off for years. Bought myself something nice, not flashy, just meaningful. And then I filed everything away. The documents. The emails. The case number. A reminder. Not that I won, but that I endured. That I stayed long enough to turn their own system against them. That I survived exploitation without losing my professionalism. That I played the long game, and it paid. Sometimes, I think about that gossip coworker. About how desperate she was to be trusted. About how eager she was to pass along secrets. She thought she was helping herself. She never knew she was helping me. And that's the part that still makes me smile. Because the most effective revenge I ever took didn't involve yelling, quitting in a blaze of glory, or burning bridges. It involved letting people underestimate me. Letting them think I was just another stylist. Just another worker who wouldn't notice. Wouldn't document. Wouldn't fight back. They were wrong. And they paid for it, one recalculated paycheck at a time. If you're listening to this and you're in a job where something feels off, trust that feeling. Pay attention to the small numbers. The cents. The quiet adjustments no one explains clearly. Because companies count on exhaustion. They count on confusion. They count on you deciding it's not worth the effort. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's patient. It's meticulous. And it waits until the truth is undeniable. If this story hit close to home, let me know in the comments. Share it with someone who needs the reminder that quiet persistence can still win. And don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes, the longest revenge stories are the most satisfying.